Hey guys, I'm T and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, we make trendy and fun crochet tutorials twice a week. If you haven't already, smash that like button, drop a comment down below, and subscribe to join in on the fun. For today's tutorial, we're making a cardigan with pockets. This charming make is a goodie from the vaults that I've always loved for its beginner-friendly design and rustic charm that always felt homely. Speaking of, if you're looking to make something that feels like home to you, you are in the right place. We have hundreds of modern crochet tutorials and patterns with more dropping twice weekly, so consider clicking the bell to subscribe and you'll never miss an upload. Also, do me a huge favor and give this video a big thumbs up if you like it, or 2 thumbs down if you don't. Either way, it's a great way to show support so I can keep putting out free tutorials every Wednesday and Sunday. Now it's time to get on the show, so without further ado. For this project, any category 4 yarn will work, but I used a total of 590 grams of yarn, and that's 1,205 yards if you're stateside. As for tools, a 6mm hook, scissors, stitch markers, and a tape measure. There is a written pattern down below. Use offer code TCDDIY for a discount off any $9.99 plus order, and enter this week's pattern giveaway by telling us what movie scared you as a kid but doesn't scare you anymore. Mine was The Grinch. The animated one was really cute, but I still gotta work my way up to the real one. Details for the giveaway down below. We're using 5 stitches for this project, and they'll be as follows. Chain, slip stitch, single crochet, half double crochet, double crochet, and extended half double crochet. This tutorial is made for size small, but you can adjust it for your size and explain how to in the video, so let's get started. Getting this cardigan started, we're all going to grab our category 4 yarn and make a slip knot. Then we're all going to grab our 6mm hook and start off by making a chain the height that we'd like for the bottom band to be. Yes, we are getting started on the bottom band first. I'd like for mine to be roughly 3 inches or 8 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain 12. Now that we have our chain, block off that last chain and do a chain 2. That chain 2 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. Then we're going to do a double crochet row. So yarn over, and into that chain that we blocked off, or the third chain from our hook, insert with a double crochet. So bring your hook down into that chain, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. From here, continue with 1 double crochet into every chain. Now that our row 1 is complete, our following row is going to be a back loop double crochet row. So we're going to chain 2 and flip our work. From here, simply yarn over, find the last stitch from our previous row and insert only into that back loop or the loop that's furthest away from us. Then double crochet per usual, so pull through 2, pull through 2. Again, yarn over, next stitch is back loop, pull through 2, pull through 2. Continue with 1 back loop double crochet into every stitch. From here, all we're going to do is continue to repeat this row until we get a width that can reach from the side of the base of our neck to where 2 inches past the tip of our shoulder. And I'll meet you back right after an odd number of rows, and then we can get started on the top band. We are back. I have just finished the width of my bottom band. I have a total of 15 rows. My width is roughly 7 inches or 18 centimeters. Now we're going to do our prep row before we do our top band. So what we're going to do is chain 1. Then all we're going to do is put 2 single crochets into every side row, working our way across. So start by finding our first side row. This is mine right here. We're going to find that top loop and insert with 1 in that same top loop with a second single crochet. Now onto the next side double crochet row. Find that next top loop and then insert with 2 single crochets again. So there's 1 and then there's 2, and that's it. Continue with 2 single crochets into every side row till we don't have any more side rows left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut. Alright, so we are back. Our single crochet row across the edge of our bottom band is complete. I did do a chain up of 1 and cut, and now we're going to get started on the top band. So we're all going to start by inserting our hook into the chain 1 that we made right before we got started on that prep row. We want to make sure that we're inserting it into there so that we see the front of the ribbing for our top band, but also show the front of the single crochet just to keep things as pretty as possible. So once our hook is in through that chain 1 space, we're going to pull through And then we're going to make a chain for the height that we'd like for the top band to be. Now I'd like for mine to be roughly 2 inches or 6 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain 9. Now that we have our chain, we're all going to block off that last chain and do a chain 2. That chain 2 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. Then start with a half double crochet into that chain that we blocked off, or the third chain from our hook. So yarn over. Into that chain, we're going to insert, yarn over, pull through. When we have these 3 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through all 3. And that's it. Continue with 1 half double crochet into every chain. Now that we've put 1 half double crochet into every chain, we're going to connect it into the base. So start by finding that next available stitch into the base. We're going to insert our hook in through that stitch with a slip stitch. So just pull through everything, remembering that that slip stitch doesn't actually count as a stitch, that's just to connect. Then we need to work our way up to the following row. So slip stitch into that following stitch into the base. That slip stitch into the base doesn't count as a stitch either, and flip our work. And now we're going to put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. So making sure we're working into the last stitch from our previous row, not into any of the slip stitches into the base, we're going to insert our hook into that back loop. Then we're going to yarn over and gently pull through everything. We want to make sure that we're pulling through gently, otherwise the following row can be too tight to work into. And again, into that next stitch, insert into that back loop, pull through everything. Continue with 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. We've just put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. Now we're going to be repeating our half double and back loop slip stitch row, but now our half double crochet rows are going to be within the back loops. So chain 2 and flip. Now put 1 back loop half double into every stitch. Then from here, yarn over, insert into that back loop, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 3. Continue with 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch, and I'll meet you back at the base. We've put 1 back loop half double into every stitch. Now we're going to connect it into the base. So just find that next available stitch into the base, insert with a slip stitch. That slip stitch still doesn't count as a stitch, it's being connected the same way as our previous rows. Then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that following stitch into the base. Flip our work and then put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, and that's it. From here, we're going to continue to repeat our 2 previous rows until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, we should all end on a slip stitch row, and then I will meet you back right after we do a chain up of 1 and cut. We are back. Our top band is completed. Now we're going to get started on the pocket brim. So first things first, my height is roughly 5 inches or 13 centimeters, and right after my last row, I did do a chain up of 1 and cut. Then we're going to insert our hook into the top corner stitch of the first half double crochet that we did. Then we're going to be putting 2 single crochets into every side half double crochet row, skipping over our side slip stitch rows. So let's just get that started. We're going to insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through and do a chain up of 1 to secure. Then just start by finding our top loop and insert with 2 single crochets. So there's 1, same top loop with 2. Skip over our following side slip stitch row and then into that side half double crochet row, insert with 2 single crochets again. So there's 1 and then there's 2. We're going to continue doing this to reach the end of the row, and then I'll meet you back. Alright, so our single crochet row is complete. Now just chain 2, flip our work, and put 1 half double crochet into every stitch, making our way back. Our half double crochet row is completed. Now we're going to do some more ribbing, which is just going to be front and back post double crochets. So from where we're at, chain 2 and flip. Start with the yarn over, preparing for our front post double. We're going to skip that first half double crochet from our previous row because we want this edge to be nice and straight. And into the second half double crochet, we're going to bring our hook underneath the body of that stitch and through the other side. Then we're going to yarn over, pull through, then yarn over, pull through 2, and pull through 2. That is our front post double crochet. Let's do a back post now. So yarn over. We're now going to bring our hook underneath our work and then over the body of that next half double crochet. So bring your hook underneath, in through that next gap, over the body of that next half double crochet and through the other side. Then yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2. That is a back post. Now we're going to continue with our front and back post double crochets to reach the end of the row, so let's do this again. Yarn over. To do a front post double, we're going to bring our hook underneath the body of that following half double crochet and through the other side, pull through 2, pull through 2. Then to do a back post, yarn over, bring our hook underneath the entire work, and then over the body of that next stitch, through the other side, pull through 2, pull through 2, and continue with our front and back post double crochets to reach the end of the row. We made our way all the way down with our front and back post double crochets. Our last one is worked into the last half double crochet. Now we're going to half double crochet into the top of that chain 2 just to make sure that everything is nice and secured down. Once we have that, we're going to chain 2 and flip. From here, we're just going to continue on with the ribbing that we did from our previous row. So since my first stitch looks like a back post double crochet, I will be doing a back post double crochet into there. And my following stitch looks like a front post double crochet, so I will do another front post double crochet. And I'm just going to continue to extend our previous row's ribbing to reach the end of the row. Make sure that the last stitch is a half double crochet. Now for this portion, we're going to continue to repeat our previous row, so just continuing to extend our previous row until we get the pocket brim height that we'd like. Now I do need to make sure that we end on an even number of rows, counting from our first single crochet row for this section, but once we have that, I will meet you back and then we can get started on the pocket slit and then the height of our entire piece. We are back. I have just finished up my pocket brim. Now I have a total of 4 rows. Now my total height for my cardigan so far is roughly 6 inches or 15 centimeters. Now from here we're going to do a single crochet row for our pocket slit. So first things first, we're all going to want to insert our stitch markers into the stitches for the width that we'd like for our pocket opening to be. I'd like for mine to be fairly wide. So what I did was insert my stitch markers into the 4th stitch from the outer edge on both sides. Now you guys can make this as wide or as narrow as you'd like. Now all we're going to do from here is single crochet until we reach our stitch marker, then make a chain for the same amount of stitches that we skipped until we reach our following stitch marker stitch, then single crochet into the rest of our stitches. So from where we're at, chain 1, put 1 single crochet into every stitch, and I'll meet you back when we're worked into our stitch marker stitch. Now I've just put 1 single crochet into every stitch until I was worked into my stitch marker stitch. I did take it out, but I have a total of 4 stitches here. Now from here, we're going to make a chain for the amount of stitches that we have from this stitch all the way down until this following stitch marker stitch. Now I have a total of 22 stitches here, so I will be making a chain of 22. And now that we have our chain, we're going to reconnect it into our stitch marker stitch. So we're going to insert our hook in through there, starting with just a single crochet. This single crochet is going to be used to connect, and also it's going to count as one of our single crochets when we're closing off the rest of our pocket. So I should have 3 more stitches left. So I will be putting 1 single crochet into each of the last stitches, and that is our pocket slit. And now that we have our pocket slit, we're now just going to do extended half double crochets until we get the height of the piece that we need. So to do that, we're all going to chain 2 and flip our work. Now to do an extended half double crochet is fairly easy. We're just going to yarn over. Insert your hook into that first stitch, yarn over, pull through. We're going to get 3 loops on our hook. Then we're going to yarn over, pull through only that first loop to still have 3 loops on our hook. Then yarn over, pull through all 3. And that is our extended half double crochet. Let's do that again. Yarn over, into that next stitch, pull through. Yarn over, pull through only the first loop to still have 3 loops on our hook. Then yarn over, pull through all 3. And that's it. We're going to continue with 1 extended half double crochet into every stitch and into every chain, making our way all the way down, and I'll meet you back when we reach the end of the row. So we are back. Our extended half double crochet row is completed. All we're going to do from here is continue to do our extended half double crochet row with no increases and no decreases. So from where we're at, simply chain 2, flip our work, and then put 1 extended half double crochet into every stitch. We're just going to continue to repeat that row with no increases and no decreases until we get a portion that reaches right underneath our underarm. So making sure that we're placing the bottom of our piece right where we'd like the bottom of this cardigan to be, keeping in mind that we did already do our bottom band, so this is the bottom. And we're just going to continue doing this until we reach roughly 1 inch underneath our underarm, and I'll meet you back right after an odd number of rows. And we're going to start counting that odd number of rows, starting with our first extended half double crochet row, and then I'll meet you back. We are back, and the height of our front panel is complete. Now, I so far have a total of 19 inches or 48 centimeters, or counting from our first extended half double crochet row, I have a total of 29 rows. Now from here, we're going to start working on our underarm portion. So from where we're at, all we're going to do is chain 2, flip our work, and prepare for a decrease. So all we're going to do is yarn over. Into that first stitch, insert, pull through. Into that following stitch, insert, pull through for a total of 4 loops on our hook. From here, we're going to yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops for a total of 3 loops on our hook, then yarn over, pull through all 3, and that is our decrease. From here, continue with our extended half double crochet until we reach the end of the row. Then when we reach the end of the row, chain 2, flip our work, and then do our extended half double crochets all the way down, leaving the last 2 so we can decrease together once more. And we do want to make sure that we're inserting a stitch marker into the decrease end of this row, just so we know where the decrease rows start. We made our way down with our second decrease row, and now we're going to close off our row with another decrease. So just do that once more, yarn over, into that next stitch, pull through, into that next stitch, which should be our last now, pull through for 4 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops to get 3 loops on our hook, then yarn over, pull through all 3, and that's it. From here, we're going to continue to repeat our 2 previous rows until this portion can reach from 1 inch underneath our underarm, making sure that our stitch marker or our first decrease row stays at 1 inch underneath our underarm till it reaches the top of our shoulder. Once we have that, do a chain of 1 and cut, and then I'll meet you back. We are back. We have just completed the entirety of our left front panel. Now I have a total of 42 rows. My total height is 25 inches or 63 centimeters, and I did do a chain up of 1 and cut right after my last row. Now we're going to get started on the right front panel. So everything is going to be done exactly the same way as this one that we just did together, including the entirety of the height, but I will meet you guys back just so I can talk you guys through how we're going to be doing the underarm portion together. Once we have that, I'll meet you back. So I am back. The right front panel is nearly finished. I've made my way all the way up. Now we're going to do the underarm portion together. Now this underarm portion is actually going to be done pretty much the same way as the left front panel, but instead of starting this first row off with a decrease, we're going to end it with a decrease. But since we already know how to do that, I'm just going to talk you guys through it. To do our first decrease row for the right front panel, we're going to chain 2, flip our work. Do our extended half double crochets all the way down, closing off the row with a decrease of 2 extended half double crochets, making sure you insert a stitch marker into the edge of that decrease row. Then start our following row off with a decrease, and then work our way back down. Continue to repeat those 2 decrease rows until we have the same amount of total rows as the first front panel that we just finished up together. Then do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then I'll meet you guys back so we can get started on the back panel. We are back. We have just finished up both of our front panels. We did do a chain up of 1 and cut, and now we're about to get started on our back panel, and it's going to be done very similarly to how each of the front panels was made. It's just going to be a lot wider. So let's talk you guys through it because I already have the first little bit completed. Now when it comes to doing our back panel, we're going to start by making the same amount of chains that we made for our bottom band, and we're just going to continue to do our back loop double crochet rows until we have a band that can reach from 2 inches past the tip of our shoulder, across our back till 2 inches past the tip of our other shoulder. Then once we have that width, the instructions are going to be the same as the front panel. We do a single crochet row, then a chain up of 1 and cut, then inserting our hook into the same end as that single crochet row started, we're going to do our back loop half double and back loop slip stitch rows till we don't have any more stitches left. Do a chain up of 1 and cut after that. Then insert our hook into the top corner stitch of that first half double crochet row, single crochet row. Then we're going to be doing our front post and back post double crochet rows for the same amount of rows that we have as the front panel. So the total height for the bottom detail of the back panel and the front panel should be exactly the same. Once we have the same amount of rows for our front and back post double crochets, we're going to do a single crochet row across the top, pretty much the same single crochet row that we did for the pocket slit, except we're not going to do a chain. So it's just going to be a solid single crochet row all the way down. Then we're going to do the same amount of rows as the front panel's extended half double crochet rows until we reach our underarm portion. Once we have those same amount of rows, I will meet you guys back so we can do the back panel's underarm portion together. I am back, and I now have the height of my back panel completed. Now from here, we're going to do the armhole portion, and that's going to be done pretty much the same way as the front panel, so I'm just going to quickly talk you guys through it. What we're going to do is we're going to start off every row, starting with this row with a decrease of 2. Then do our extended half double crochets into every stitch, making our way all the way down. Then at the end of the row, at the end of the row, chain 2, flip our work, start the following row off with a decrease, and then make our way all the way down again. So for the back panel's underarm portion, each of our underarm rows should have one less stitch than the previous row. But we're just going to continue to do those rows until we have the same amount of rows as the front panel. And one last quick tip, don't forget to insert your stitch markers into the edge of this following decrease row, just so we know where that starts. Once we have the entirety of the back panel completed, I will meet you back. Alright, we are back. The entirety of our back panel is complete. I did do a chain up of 1 and cut right after my last row. Now we're going to seam everything together. So let's all start by placing our front panel on top of our back panel, making sure that the ribbing for the top band that we did is facing in on itself, because remember, it isn't reversible and we want our seams to be along the inside. We are then going to insert our hook into the top corner stitch of both the front and the back panel, making sure that the slanted ends are along the outside for both the front and the back panel, because that is our armhole. We are going to insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through, do a chain up of 1 to secure, then just put 1 single crochet into both the front and the back panel at the same time. So just finding that first stitch into the front panel, insert, first stitch into the back panel, insert, and then single crochet everything together. One more, next stitch into the front panel, insert, next stitch into the back panel, insert, and single crochet, and just continue that, making our way all the way down. We don't have any more stitches left to work into, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then repeat on the other side. Then I'll meet you back. Alright, so we are back. We have just finished up seaming the shoulders. Now we're going to seam up our sides. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that our work is still flipped wrong side out, meaning the seam that we did for the shoulder is still along the outside. Then we're going to be inserting our hook into the bottom corner stitch of both the front and the back panel, and we're going to do another single crochet seam until we reach our stitch marker row. So what we're going to do is still do our single crochet seam, because we are going to have some regular stitches to work into, but we are also going to have some side single crochet rows to work into and some side extended half double crochet rows to work into. So what we're going to do is insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through, do a chain up of 1 to secure. Then from here, do our normal single crochet seam until we reach our first side single crochet row right over here. So we've made our way up with our single crochets into each of our stitches. Now we've reached our first side row. What we're going to do is just put 1 single crochet into that side single crochet row. So we're just going to find that top loop, insert into the front panel, find the same top loop within the back panel, insert into that top loop, and we're going to single crochet, and that is that. From here, continue with 1 single crochet into every stitch. Once we reach our side single crochet row again, put 1 single crochet into there, and then I'll meet you back once we reach the pocket brim portion. Okay, so once we have reached our pocket brim portion, we should have some side half double crochets to work into. Then we're going to have our extended half double crochet rows to work into. All we're going to do is put 2 single crochets into every side row from the pocket brim, including into the height of the body, making our way all the way up until we reach our stitch marker stitch. So we're going to find our first side half double, insert into that top loop, our next side half double within the back panel, insert into there, and insert with 1, into that same top loop with 2. Again, next top loop within the front panel, next top loop within the back panel. We're going to insert with 2 single crochets. We're going to continue doing this until we reach our side single crochet row that we did right in between our pocket brim and our height. Now this is mine right here. So I'm going to find that top loop within the front, find that same top loop within the back, insert with a single. Now the rest of this, just 2 single crochets in every side extended half double crochet row. So just to do the first. Find our first side extended half row, top loop within the front, top loop within the back, and then insert with 2 single crochets. We're going to continue on with this until we're worked into the side row that's right before our stitch marker stitch, because remember, our stitch marker rows are the ones that we started the decreases into. Once we have that, do a chain up of 1 and cut, repeat on the other side, and then I'll meet you back to get started on the length of our sleeve. We are back. We have just finished up seaming our sides. Now we're going to get started on our sleeve. So first things first, we're going to make sure that our work is flipped right side out, meaning all of our seams are now along the inside. Then we're going to be inserting our hook into the stitch that we have that's nearest to our side seam within the armhole. Now we're going to do a single crochet row. So we're all going to start by putting 2 single crochets into every side row. Now we should all know how to do this, so I'll meet you guys back once we're worked into the last side row that we have that's right before our shoulder seam. So we're back. We've made our way up with our single crochet row until we have reached our shoulder seam. Now what we're going to do, because we need to know where our 2 middle rows are, is insert our stitch marker into that last stitch, and then start with the same single crochets working our way down the other side of our shoulder seam. But when we do our first single crochet on this side of our shoulder seam, insert a stitch marker into that first single crochet. But from here, we're going to continue with 2 single crochets into every side row, making our way down, then slip stitch into that chain space, and then I'll meet you back. Our single crochet row along our armhole is complete on both sides. Now from here, we're going to make a chain. As you guys can see, I've already made my chain, the length that we'd like for the sleeve to be, so you can make this as long or as short as you'd like. I'd like for mine to be a long sleeve, but keeping in mind that we are going to have a cuff as well. So I'd like for mine to be roughly 15 inches or 38 centimeters, so I made a chain of 65. Then from here, what we're going to do is do our extended half doubles all the way back. So block off that last chain and chain 2. That chain 2 doesn't count as a stitch. Into that chain that we blocked off, or the third chain from our hook, insert with our first extended half double, and continue with our extended half double crochets until we all have 1 chain left, and then I'll meet you back. So we are back. We've made our way down with our first row, leaving that last chain. Now we're just going to do an increase. So this increase is going to be an increase of 2 extended half doubles. So simply put 2 extended half doubles into that same last chain. So there's 1 into that same last chain with a second, and now our row 1 is complete. Now we're going to be connecting it into the base. So what we're going to do is count up the next 2 available stitches and then slip stitch into that second. So like I said, count up 1, count up 2. Into that second stitch, we're going to insert with a slip stitch. Now that slip stitch doesn't actually count as a stitch. We just needed to connect. Then, in order to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch up the following 2 stitches into the base. We're slip stitching into the next 2 because these stitches are tall. So in that next stitch, there's 1. Next stitch, there's our second. Now none of those slip stitches into the base count as a stitch, and flip our work. Now for this half of the sleeve, we're always going to be doing an increase into the stitches nearest to the base. So since we're working on an even number row, working our way out, we're all going to yarn over and find the last stitch from our previous row, not any of those slip stitches into the base, insert into there with 2 extended half doubles. That is going to be our increase. From here, continue with 1 extended half double into every stitch. Now just to connect it into the base together once more, at the end of this row, chain 2, flip our work, and then do our extended half doubles all the way back down, and I'll meet you back when we have 1 stitch left, and then we'll connect it into the base together once more. So we are back. We have our first 1, 2, 3 rows nearly complete. Now we're going to connect our third row into the base, but making sure that our last stitch is an increase. So yarn over, into the last stitch from our previous row, insert with 2 extended half double crochets. So here's my first, into that same last stitch with my second. Now that we have our increase, just to connect it into the base together once more, it's going to be done exactly the same way as our previous rows. So count up the next 2 available stitches. Into that second stitch, insert with a slip stitch to complete this row. Then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into the following 2 stitches into the base. So there's 1, there's my second. Now none of those slip stitches into the base count as a stitch. Flip our work, start the following row off with an increase, and then continue on with 1 extended half double crochet into every stitch. We're going to continue to repeat our 2 previous rows until we've worked our way all the way up into our first stitch marker stitch. Once we have that, I will meet you guys back so we can work our way back down our piece. So we are back. I have just completed the increase side of my sleeve. Now we're going to do basically the same thing that we did here, but working our way down, doing decreases instead of increases. So since we already know how to do our decreases and we already know how to connect our rows into the base, I'm actually just going to talk you guys through it. So if you guys ended along the base like me, all you're going to do is just slip stitch into the following 2 stitches into the base. So that's per usual. Flip your work, start your following row off with a decrease, and then finish up the row with 1 extended half double into the rest of our stitches. If you guys ended along the outer edge, put 1 extended half double crochet into every stitch, and into the last 2 stitches, do a decrease, and then connect it into the base the same way that we just did. We're just going to continue to repeat those 2 rows, making our way all the way down. When we don't have any more stitches left to work into, I'll meet you back so we can seam it all together. So we are back. We have just completed the decrease half of our sleeve. Now from here, we're going to seam it up together, and this is going to be the same seam that we did for the shoulders and for the sides, so I'm just going to talk you guys through it. This is going to be a single crochet seam. So we're going to start by flipping our work wrong side out, so all of our seams are along the outside. We're going to do our single crochet seam so we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of one and cut, and then I'll meet you back. So now that our sleeves are all seamed up, we're all going to get started on our cuff. So first things first, let's make sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up. Then we're going to insert our hook into any one of the side rows along the edge of our sleeve, then insert our yarn onto our hook. We're going to pull our working yarn through and do a chain up of one to secure, and do a single crochet row by putting one single crochet into every side row. So this is my first side row right here. I'm going to find that top loop, insert with a single. This is my next side row. Insert into that top loop with another single, and that's it. Continue this, making our way all the way around, and then slip stitch into that chain space. So our single crochet row along the edge of our sleeve is completed. We've slip stitched into that chain space, and now from here we're all going to make a chain the length that we'd like for our cuff to be. I'd like for mine to be roughly 2 inches or 5 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain 10. Now that we have our chain, block off that last chain and do a chain 1. That chain 1 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. Then into that chain that we blocked off with the second chain from our hook, insert with a slip stitch. So we're going to bring our hook down into that chain. When we have these 2 loops on our hook, yarn over, and gently pull through both loops on our hook. We want to make sure that we're pulling gently. Otherwise the following row is going to be too tight to work into, so let's do that again. Into that following chain, insert, yarn over, and pull through 2. And we're just going to continue doing this until we make our way down our chain. Now that we've put one slip stitch into every chain, we're going to connect it into the base. So how we're going to do that is just start by finding that next available stitch into the base, slip stitch into there just to connect. Now that slip stitch into the base doesn't actually count as a stitch, that's just to connect. Then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that following stitch into the base, still doesn't actually count as a stitch, and flip our work. And from here we're going to be putting one back loop slip stitch into every stitch. So all together, finding the last stitch from our previous row and making sure we're not working into those slip stitches into the base, we're going to insert into that back loop, then yarn over, gently pull through everything, and again, next stitch is back loop, yarn over, pull through everything. Continue with one back loop slip stitch into every stitch, then at the end of the row, chain 1, flip your work, and put one back loop slip stitch into every stitch again, and I'll meet you back at the base once more. Our first 1, 2, 3 rows are nearly completed. We're just going to connect it into the base again together. So finding that next available stitch into the base, insert with a slip stitch to connect. Then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into the next stitch into the base, flip our work, and then put one back loop slip stitch into every stitch, and that's it. Continue to repeat these 2 rows with no increases and no decreases, and I'll meet you back. We don't have any more stitches left to work into, so we can seam it all together. So we are back. We've made our way all the way out with our back loop slip stitch rows. Now we're just going to seam it together. Now this is going to be an outside loop slip stitch seam, so what we're going to do is make sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up. Then we're going to insert our hook into the corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. We are then going to yarn over, pull through everything on our hook, and just do the first few. We're going to find that first stitch into the front panel and insert only in through that front loop. First stitch into the back panel, insert only in through that back loop if we can get it. Then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on our hook. Again, into that next stitch into the front panel, insert in through that front loop. Next stitch into the back panel, insert into that back loop, yarn over, and pull through everything. And that's it. Continue this until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then repeat on the other side. So now that both of our sleeves are completed, the next thing we're going to do is our front band. So that's going to be fairly simple. It is going to be front and back post double crochets, kind of like how we did for the pocket brim. So we're going to start by making sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up. Then we're going to be inserting our hook into the bottom corner stitch of one of our front panels, doesn't matter which one, and we're just going to start with a half double crochet row, making our way all the way up and around to the other corner. So that's going to be fairly simple. I'm just going to talk you guys through it. One half double crochet is going to be worked into every stitch. When we reach our few side single crochet rows, we're going to be putting one single crochet into the top of that side single crochet row, and then we reach our side half double or our side extended half double crochet row, 2 half double crochets are going to be worked into there. And we're just going to continue that, making our way all the way up and around. I'll meet you guys back once we reach that other bottom corner. So we are back. We have just finished up our half double crochet row along the entirety of our piece. Now from here, we're going to do our front and back post double crochets until we get the total front band width that we'd like. So this is going to be done pretty much the same way that we did the pocket brim, so I'm just going to talk you guys through it. Right after we finish up our half double crochet row, chain 2, flip our work. Then we're going to do front and back post double crochets, making our way all the way up and around, and into that last stitch, which is the top of that chain 2, insert with a half double crochet. Then chain 2, flip your work, and then from there we're just going to continue to extend our previous row's stitches until we get the total width of the front band that we want. Now once we have that, do a chain up and 1 and cut, and then I'll meet you back. I am back and I have completed my front band. I just did a total of 3 rows, that's roughly 1 inch or 2 centimeters, and I did do a chain up and 1 and cut. Now the last thing we're all going to do is our pocket. The last thing we're all going to do is our pocket, so this is going to be done fairly simply. First things first, we're going to make sure that our work is flipped right side out, but we are going to open up our front panel, making sure that the bottom band is away from us. Then from here, taking a look at the pocket slit, we're going to insert our hook into the pocket slit portion that is closest to us, so the side that's not nearest to the bottom band. Then into that chain that we made that first formed our pocket slit when we were getting started on it, we're just going to be putting 1 double crochet into every stitch. Then from here, all we're going to do is just do double crochet rows until we get the total length of the pocket that we want, and we just want to make sure that we're not exceeding the bottom band. So just do a couple rows for the depth that you'd like for the pocket to be, and then I'll meet you back just so I can talk you guys through how we're going to sew it all in together. Alright, so we are back. I have just completed the entire length of my pocket. It could be a little bit hard to see, but this is my first row, and I just continued all the way down until I basically was almost at the bottom of my piece because I wanted really deep pockets. Now I did a total of 11 rows, and all I did after I did a chain up 1 and cut was just used a tapestry needle and just weaved it in. Now I don't have any real rhyme or reason on how I weaved it in. I just tried to keep it as straight as possible and made sure that the yarn that I was using wasn't peeking through the front because I want to keep that as clean as possible. But once we have that, we're going to repeat this on the other side and then we'll be all done. We are back. We have finished up both of our pockets and we are all done. Now the last thing I have to do is just weave in all of our ends. And there you have it. Hope y'all enjoyed the tutorial. Don't forget to check us out on Instagram, Pinterest, or Twitter. Those links are down below. And also don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Catch y'all in the next one. Bye!